Hey, welcome back to the podcast. You are listening to Stuff No One Told Us About Weight Loss. My name is Aaron. I'm here with Eloise, and today we're going to be talking about myths about behavior change.
I think there are a lot of people talking about how to change your life, how to change your habits, how to lose weight. All of that is behavior change, and the myths that are going around, unfortunately, make us less likely to start these changes because we think it's going to be super hard or we're doing it in a way that's unsustainable because we've been told that's how you should do it.
Yeah.
And so that's why we really want to talk about this, so that we just bust a few myths, and we've got 3 myths to bust today. So that you start to understand that behavior change, while of course it is a challenge, changing anything is a challenge, it is not as difficult and painful as a lot of people think that it is.
And that sort of brings us to the first one, and it's a big one, especially in the fitness industry, and it's such a barrier to a lot of people. And it's the whole myth of you just have to work harder. You know, you've just got to work out more intensely and do more burpees and
more
run a bit
hardcore
longer.
is better. It's not true, because it's really not a sustainable method at all. So if you have any goal to lose weight and keep it off, which is what we talk about, so I'm assuming if you're listening, you have a goal to not just lose weight, but also keep it off long term, then you need a sustainable method. Because if you go for these unsustainable methods where you just have to work harder, go more intense, constantly doing more, you're more likely to either burn out and be forced to stop, or to quit because it just is too difficult.
That's right. If you're climbing a ladder and it's against the wrong wall and you're working really hard trying to get to the top, it doesn't really matter because you're not focusing on the right things. You're not on the right wall. That ladder's not going to lead to anywhere where you actually want to go.
Exactly. And which wall is right or wrong for you is going to be different for everyone.
That's right.
Which is another thing I think that a lot of people forget, is that this person working really hard, it might work for them because they're working really hard on the right thing. But for you, working hard on that same thing might not be the right method for you, because everyone's wall is unique. The wall that Aaron needs is different to the wall that I need to climb. And you need to think about that as well when it comes to working hard. Yeah, there's some level of hard work that's involved in terms of changing your behavior, of course.
Yeah.
But hard work for the sake of hard work and just more for the sake of more is not always helpful.
Well, that's right. And there's a lot of individual circumstances and individual situation elements that need to come into play. A blanket statement of you just need to go harder, you just need to push harder, while it's probably coming from good intentions, a lot of people apply that in the wrong essence. And what this classically looks like for a lot of people is with workouts. They just hear you've got to work harder, you've got to push yourself harder. And a lot of the times, if you're doing something the wrong way, pushing harder is not going to help you. It's actually going to make the problem a lot worse. As we said before, you're either going to be forced to stop because you've got an injury, or you're just going to be, creating more problems the harder you push with that.
Well, you're going to eventually feel defeated. If you're working super hard, and this is a classic one, I'm working out so hard and I'm just not seeing results. Oh my gosh, I go to the gym every day. I run every day. I do these super intense workouts. Why aren't I losing weight? That feels really defeating. And the problem is, you don't need to do more workouts. You don't need to work harder in that area. It's an inefficient way to lose weight. Focusing on working harder in that area is stopping you from doing what you really need to do to get results, which is to focus on your eating habits.
Yeah.
If the strategy is fundamentally flawed, then no matter how hard you work, you're never going to get the results you want.
That's right. Working hard is still important, but to a certain degree. You don't want to be going and putting all your effort into one thing and one thing only if it's not going to pay off in a positive way. As I always mentioned before, if you're absolutely flogging yourself in the gym and it's not working for you, that could be a clear indication that maybe you need to focus a little bit more attention to other areas which are also going to give you a return. And namely with weight loss, that comes down to nutrition. That is going to give you the biggest return.
And even lifestyle habits are probably going to give you more of a return than just working out harder in the gym.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we see time and time again people trying to lose weight by just working out harder. And then they feel defeated and they feel like there's something wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just a problem with the strategy that you're using.
Yeah. And it just takes a few small tweaks and a shift in focus slightly, and you'll be making a lot more progress a lot quicker. And it sort of brings us on to the second one, which is another big myth, is you need more motivation.
And this is not really a myth, I think, that people outwardly say. They don't necessarily say, oh, you should just go find more motivation. But I think it's something a lot of us just believe. We tend to have this belief that people who have the results that we want are inherently more motivated than we are, which is just not true. Like Aaron and myself, we aren't motivated all the time at all. I mean, me personally, I have level 0 motivation. But that's why I can talk on habit change and behavior change so much, because I've learned so many techniques and strategies to work around the fact that I never have motivation to do anything.
No, and that's the same. Like I'm the same. Like not every day I feel like I want to go and do a workout, but you just get into the routine of just following through with what you say you're going to do, and in that aspect, you build up the discipline over time. You know, you're not always going to feel like I want to go for a walk or sit down, and even like something not related, like reading a book. You know, but if you have a goal to learn something, even just chipping away at it, read 1 page. You don't have to sit there and read 10. With your workouts, it could be like go in and do 5 minutes instead of doing, half an hour at a really intense thing. Like you're adapting it to what you want to do.
If you have those really small goals, you're much more likely to then be motivated to do more. And this is a really interesting thing, because a lot of us sit back and we think, well, I'm waiting to feel motivated before I do whatever I'm going to do. Or I'm hoping that I'll feel motivated, or I'm going to try and get motivated to do something. And it doesn't work like that. That is backwards thinking, because action is what creates motivation. And so if you do those small habits, like what Aaron just said, you get a small win, you do 5 minutes of something, then you're much more likely to do more. Like if you say, okay, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm just going to show up. If I show up at the gym and I don't want to stay, I'm going to leave. That's cool. But the act of you getting in the car and driving to the gym and showing up at the gym makes it 10 times more likely that you're going to finish a full workout, because you've taken some action. If you're just sitting on the couch going, when will I feel motivated? I just can't be bothered doing anything. You're not taking action, therefore you're not going to be motivated. But if you just get up off the couch and put your workout clothes on, you're probably going to then be more likely to follow through.
And half of that battle is literally just changing your state. So the state is how you're sort of feeling in that particular moment. If we change our movements around, we get up and walk around, like we're changing our state, we're changing things that are going on inside us and the way we think, etc. That's going to influence how we feel about doing something. So just that simple act of, as Eloise said before, like driving to the gym, like getting to the gym, like you've had to prepare things, you're less likely to get to the car park and turn around and go back home.
Yeah. Another way to do that is, say your goal is to start going for walks and you're someone who really doesn't feel motivated to go for a walk. Have the goal to just walk outside to the end of the street.
Yeah.
If you walk to the end of the street and you still can't be bothered walking, go home.
Yeah.
Allow yourself that. But what is most likely to happen is once you get to the end of the street, you're like, I'll just go around the block.
Yeah.
And then you've done a full walk around the block. That's a massive win.
Or the other alternative is choose something that you want to listen to that is, say, above 20 minutes long, and aim to start, as soon as you go out for your walk, start listening to it. And as you start walking, you're going to want to keep listening to that. So you're more likely to keep walking in order to listen to that thing than just turning around and going back home. Like you're setting yourself up to actually keep doing it. You're more motivated to keep walking because you want to listen to whatever it is that you're listening to.
Exactly. Bottom line is that motivation doesn't just come to us. We need to have habits and routines in place to work around the fact that we don't always feel motivated. And we need to sometimes just do things anyway. But a big thing with motivation is if your goals and the habits you're trying to do are too big and they're not doable for you, it's going to be 10 times harder for you to get started and take the action you need to then feel motivated to take more action.
Yeah.
So make sure that you're only telling yourself that you have to do this really small thing.
Yeah.
Make it so ridiculously easy and doable that even when you feel like absolute crap, you'll still do it.
Yeah.
Then you do that one small thing, you get a win, you're then more likely to feel motivated to want to do more. A lot of the time you hear people say, even though you don't feel motivated, just start. Just do something. Just get started. And the problem is a lot of us think, okay, well, I'll just start. I'm just going to start following this meal plan. I'm just going to start by starting this diet. And that's really hard. It's really hard to just start doing this massive thing. But what is going to be really easy is if just start means, okay, I'm just going to eat my next meal a bit slower. That's
right.
Easy. It's easy to just start if your action is really small.
Yeah. Well, even like with the walking example that we had before, if you have a goal of going for a walk and you really don't feel like it, make your goal smaller. Make your goal, I'm literally just going to put my shoes on.
Yeah.
That's it.
Or just walk out the front door, because often getting out the door can be the hardest part.
Yeah.
So put your shoes on, walk out the door.
Yeah.
If you step outside and you're like, not feeling it, allow yourself to go back inside.
It's just about creating that initial momentum, and then chances are you're going to start to follow through and you're going to start that behavior that you want to be doing. So myth number 3 is that you can change overnight. Now, as human beings, we are hardwired to find balance, to resist change, because our body wants to stay in perfect balance because that ensures survival.
Stability is naturally comfortable for us, and change is uncomfortable. That's why that act of going from seated to movement is difficult, because it's that like inertia. The getting started is difficult, but once you're moving, you can keep going.
Yeah, that's right. And it's when we try to change in a huge way, we're met with a lot of resistance. And, you know, we've got everything, bells and whistles going off in our brain saying like, oh, hang on, this is too far outside of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
This could be dangerous. Like, I don't want to do that.
And what is absolutely crazy to me is that 99% of people who try to lose weight try to start a challenge or a diet or a workout program overnight. They go from 0 to 100 overnight. And yet there's all of this evidence showing that changing overnight is just about the worst way you could possibly do it. And there's this book called Mastery by George Leonard, where he talks about the bigger the change, the more resistance you're going to feel. Even if you logically know that that change is going to benefit your life in a positive way. The opposite of that is when you make smaller changes, you're going to encounter less resistance. Not zero resistance, as we've spoken about. Any kind of change is uncomfortable in the beginning. You're doing things that you don't normally do. It's normal to feel uncomfortable, and it's going to feel a little bit difficult and like you're forcing it a little bit in the beginning. But there's a big difference between just forcing yourself to do 5 minutes of walking and forcing yourself to do an hour boot camp session with some hardcore training group.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between trying to follow a meal plan, completely changing everything about the way that you eat overnight, and just trying to eat slower at dinner time today. There's still going to be resistance when you're trying to eat slower if you don't normally do that.
Yeah.
But it's going to be way different to the resistance that you'll feel when you try to follow this meal plan that you've never eaten before.
It's exactly the same with an example when you're lifting weights. Like, you don't go from first day in the gym to going and deadlifting 200 kilos right off the bat. It's just not going to happen.
Exactly.
It takes time. Like, you've got to go in with a plan of adding a little bit each time. Like, your body can adapt to that and to change and make the changes necessary for you to be able to deadlift 200 kilos in a significant amount of time. But it's not going to happen overnight. Like, there is work involved in just making small changes as you go to get you to that point. And that's the same with any habit that you're wanting to implement, like especially around diets. It seems to be something that we just sort of throw that thinking out the window.
Well, it's interesting that most people know I'm not going to jump in and do really super heavy weights on day one. Most of us know we have to do small reps over time and build the weight over time. But for some reason, when it comes to nutrition, no one seems to remember that you need to make small changes over time as well.
I think a lot of the times is we're overconfident in what we think we can execute on because we've been eating from the day we were born. Whereas when we're not as confident with something, but we want to get a result in that, such as lifting weights, we know there's going to be a bit of a learning curve there. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of people is they don't realize and take a few steps back and go like, I'm changing something I've been fundamentally doing. There's going to be a learning curve. You know, with nutrition, like there's always going to be a learning curve when you're introducing something new. It's exactly the same with lifting weights, when you're learning to drive a car, when you learn to ride a bike. Anything new, there's going to be that curve where you have to spend time actually learning how to do it.
The other thing with those two comparisons as well is when we're lifting weights, we're usually doing it in the same spot, in the same environment. Whereas when we're eating, we tend to think that there's no distractions and it's going to be sort of a perfect scenario. And we don't consider what's going to happen when we eat out at restaurants, what's going to happen when we eat with other people, what's going to happen when someone brings food to the break room at work. We never consider those things that are going to come up and get in our way. And I think that's possibly the difference, is that when we eat in many different environments, whereas when we lift weights in one environment.
Yeah.
A controlled environment usually, whereas eating is rarely a controlled environment.
Yeah, so that's why like small changes allow us to maintain that sense of stability while pushing ourselves slightly out of our comfort zone. We're making that comfort zone slightly bigger at a time. We're not trying to stretch it all at once, because imagine like an elastic band. Like if you try to stretch it all at once, it's just going to come right back to its original shape. But if we go a little bit at a time and we keep doing that over time, like it gradually actually stretches.
So once again, when we are changing, there will be resistance. With any change, even small ones, you're going to feel uncomfortable, but small changes are going to allow you to feel less resistance, and the resistance is going to be much easier to overcome than if you try to change everything overnight. You're going to be slapped in the face with a whole bunch of big resistance that's going to make it much more likely that you're going to quit and not follow through. So those are the 3 myths that we really wanted to share with you today. We think it's really important to understand that they are myths, and you don't need to just work harder. It is important to work smarter and make sure you're working in a way that works with you. You don't just need more motivation, but you need to learn how to act even before you feel motivated, and to create motivation through action. And the third one was, it is a myth that you can just change overnight. Small, sustainable changes are really the best way, because as humans we're wired to seek stability, and so small changes help us maintain a sense of stability while also completely changing our lives.
As you're working towards your goals that you have for 2022, keep those in mind. If you are feeling a little bit of resistance, understand that that is normal, but we don't want to be feeling a huge amount of resistance. And if we are, maybe look at just dialing it back a few notches so that it is more sustainable for you.
Yeah.
And
how can you make it easier on yourself?
That's right. The easier it is that you can do while encountering a little bit of resistance is going to mean that you can much easier follow through, and then it's much more likely to stick. If it's too much resistance in the beginning, there's a good chance that it's going to be dropped quite quickly and you're not going to do it again.
And that's all we have for you today. We hope that was really helpful, and we will see you in the next episode.